I'm Jim Kunkle, and welcome to Amplify. This episode will be a call to action for AMP members in America to help support passage of the Surface Transportation and Water Infrastructure Bill that is currently in the Senate. Today's conversation was recorded on July 29th, 2021, so please look for future updates from AMP on this important infrastructure legislation. Joining me today is Lou Lyras, CEO of Corcon Incorporated. Corcon, as a painting contractor, holds QP1 and QP2 accreditations. Sam Scaturro is the president of Alpine Painting and is the AMP vice chairman of the board. Alpine holds QP1, QP2, QP8, QP9, and QS1 accreditations. And Adam Christopher is the AMP manager of government relations. And now for our conversation. Hey, gentlemen, welcome to Amplify.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here
this morning, Jim.
It's great to have you. Hey, Adam, let's go ahead and start our conversation off about the Surface Transportation and Water Infrastructure Bill. You know, what is it first, and what does it cover? What does it address?
That's a great question, and it takes a little bit of time to understand because I know there's been a lot of conversations throughout the past year and maybe even really several years on infrastructure legislation. When is it going to pass? What is it going to do? So the current bill that we're going to be talking about today is something that passed the House of Representatives about a month ago on July 1st. And really what that is kind of the marker and the first action by the House on what they see as an infrastructure bill. And in that specific piece of legislation, they've included the Surface Transportation Bill, which is also known as the Highway Bill, and sets funding and policies for the infrastructure world, specifically on the road side. Each year that needs to be authorized to make sure that there's funding going to those programs and that the correct policies are in place. So that's something that's very important. And then secondly, the House included in their legislation a water infrastructure bill, which really shows the importance that the House and members of Congress are placing on fixing our water systems. We can see the roads and the bridges, but all the things that are underneath us, we can't easily see, but we know that the average lifespan of some of these systems is 100 years. And so that's really kind of the bulk of what we're going to get into today is the House's opportunity and first look at how to fund these sort of important topics.
Yeah, and we're also going to talk about what AMP members can do in the general industries that we do work with our stakeholders, what they can do to help in the passage of this important act.
Of course, yeah. You want me to dive into that now?
Well, let's say that.
Okay.
Hey, Lou, and based on your experience and Corcon's experience, working with the bridge and transportation infrastructure, in your opinion, what's the current state, the condition of America's infrastructure when it comes to transportation systems?
Most of my work is obviously the bridges, and of course we need a big investment. We haven't had a good investment in the bridges. Most of the bridge work that I do is the quasi-government agencies like the Delaware River or New Jersey Port Authority or the MTA. So they're funded by tolls, but they do need, especially now, they need a lot of government funding because obviously tolls and things are going to be changing. And I think we should be talking about that too, how we fund this stuff. As far as, you don't need to go by me, the American Society of Civil Engineers has been talking about $8 trillion investment, not 1 trillion, not 3.5 trillion, 8 trillion. And that was back when Obama passed the first $750 billion Surface Transportation Act. And that was to get the economy rolling again. Is it bad? It's every 10 years, every 20 years, we have to be working on these bridges. I see corrosion all the time. It's not going to stop. So this has to be going, and it's a little easier on the big bridges that I'm working on because they're toll. It's harder now when you're dealing with a New Jersey DOT, a PennDOT, a Connecticut DOT, the regular standard DOTs. And we're still are the city governments and county governments because they are grossly underfunded. They need help. So as far as this bill, it's a $1 trillion package. I just picked up I downloaded, I was reading last night, New York Times, 2 articles on it, which differs from what you had said in what you sent me. It's woefully low. I think it's low.
Yeah. Sam, I'd like to get your opinion also too regarding the state of infrastructure here in America, but also too, if you could talk specifically about water, wastewater.
Sure, I'm happy to. We spend a lot of time rehabilitating both concrete and steel structures in water and wastewater environments in the northeastern part of the United States. And, like everything else in the U.S. infrastructure, it's aging. We have pipelines that have been underground for over 100 years that are transporting water back and forth. I mean, people are familiar with Flint, Michigan, familiar with Newark, New Jersey, areas where, they've had issues with lead pipelines and how that's causing, health concerns for the residents of those areas. So there's a lot of this infrastructure that not only needs to be replaced, but also needs to be rehabilitated. And that's where, the AMP organization comes in, creates some great standards, has qualification programs like the QP program that qualifies contractors to come in and rehabilitate these structures, whether it be, concrete, the QP8 certification, whether it be, steel with the QP1 certification, and then also, removing, things like lead that I just spoke about, with QP2. Those are all great things, to help the industry. But absolutely, I mean, more money needs to be spent on these things because this is our drinking water. This is disposal of our wastewater. These are, very, very important concerns for our society.
Yeah, we can see the aging of our infrastructure every day when we go about our daily lives. And earlier in our conversation, Adam talked about the legislation. The language within it has the requirement for certified, qualified contractors like the QP program. Also, it does specifically target quality management systems, quality control systems, and that the craft workers be trained and certified by an authority such as AMP. Sam, when we're looking at certified contractors, how do you see the work requirement for QP contractors benefiting infrastructures and importantly the taxpayers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that some of the language that's being presented out there and in fact, the language that was passed by the House recently is fantastic for the taxpayers because, what's the biggest sin to me is when, an organization, whether it be a state, DOT, federal government, municipality, takes taxpayer money and goes out and spends that money on a job hoping to get a big infrastructure upgrade. And then occasionally, because they have to deal with a low bid situation, they get a contractor that just, they make their 1-year warranty, but the thing falls apart in the next, 4, 5, 6 years. And I see it on a regular basis. It's not, an uncommon occurrence. It's a more common occurrence that things like that happen. But by, now having things in our legislation or hopefully in our legislation, if it passes the Senate and ultimately gets signed by the president, something like this is huge for the taxpayers because now their money is going and being spent on something that's going to last significantly longer because those quality control procedures are in place to make sure that, it's a good job, to make sure that everyone's following the rules, to make sure that you have trained workers, to make sure you have a contractor who understands what's going on and has proven themselves over and over again and gets audited on a regular basis to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, most definitely. And both Alpine and Corcon are great examples of quality contractors that perform this important work, not only in transportation, bridge and highway, but also water, wastewater as well. Lou, let me ask you this question. As a accredited contractor with the QP program, when we look at the benefit for the taxpayers, there's benefits for the contractors and then ultimately the overall economy. You as a chief executive officer with Corcon, how does it benefit your operation and then ultimately the workers who work for you and then the surrounding economies with this type of money and funding?
I'm not going to repeat what Sam said. Of course, everything that he said is right. Being a CUBE member, we started the QP2 program back in the late 80s. And then I got involved in 92. And I think I chaired it for a while. I'm up to 2006 is when I dropped out of the program. Not dropped out of the program, I'm sorry, as far as participation. Sam could take over, he's much younger than me. But it was more than just, it started out with quality control. We needed a way to separate the bad contractors. But it wasn't just separating them, it was teaching them what to do. Because remember, back then, we were also forced with waste management, how to handle waste, how to handle containment, how to do all of this type of work. So we were a holding house for everybody. So it's not so much we were raising the bar, we were also doing a lot of good instruction and teaching them what to do. As the program evolved, we gave it teeth, we did audits, we kicked some guys out, put some guys back in. We worked very hard to elevate it to this step. And I right now with NACE involved, I think it's going to go even further. And it's very important now because what Sam said and what good contractors, our work, we certify our work, we back it up. A 1-year guarantee is meaningless. Means nothing to me. I like to see that they go 10 years, 15 years. That's important. And then having the documentation to back it up. Another thing that's extremely important to me is that certification and these things involve also payroll. Remember, the spec is not just quality control, safety, and the proper insurances. It also meant, did you pay the people properly? And there's that documentation. So it's all encompassing. It's all encompassing. What I'd like to mention that, remember, we talk about deficit spending and big government spending, but every dollar that we put into infrastructure in our own country is going to bring back $1.60 in benefits through taxes, revenue, just bringing it into the economy. People are working and workers are putting their kids through school. I mean, this is all important, not mentioning also the benefits of having that bridge not shut down or the waterways with clean water. I'm not a tank guy. But yeah, there's no doubt that I'm 100% for the program, but the program is much more than just quality control. It's everything. And then we have to, that's it. We're here to do that kind of work and we're here to support it.
Very good, Lou. Adam, let me go back to you. When we look at the passage of this, what's the current pathway and what can AMP members, those that are here in America, what can the American AMP members do and what can the general industry do to help support the passage of this legislation?
That's a great question, Jim. And as we were talking earlier, it's not quite as easy as Schoolhouse Rock made it out to be in the beginning. There's a lot of paths that have to happen and hurdles that have to be crossed, but there's a lot of good things out there. First, the House passing this bill, like I said, is their chance to say, here are our priorities, here's where we're going to work from, and we're serious about this, and this is where we want to move forward. Right now, the Senate is kind of in that process themselves. They've been working for the better part of 6 months to maybe even a year to come up with some principles and some guiding goalposts on what they want to be in infrastructure legislation. And so actually last night they voted to move forward on this topic, and there will be several amendments, and our language will certainly be something that's discussed during this time as well. But they're going to work to pass their own version of what their priorities are. And then from there, it really comes about the two sides kind of coming together, defining that path forward on what they want it to be, and then just crossing the finish line and getting something to President Biden's desk. For us, from an AMP standpoint, every day I'm working on your behalf. Our government relations team is working on your behalf to do outreach, to meet with members of the House of Representatives, to meet with members of the Senate, to share the important stories that Sam and Lou are sharing here today. But we also need that support from our members reaching out to their senators and representatives in Congress. I can say, about 15 years ago, I'm a recovering Capitol Hill staffer. I worked on Capitol Hill, but my boss consistently asked me, he said, okay, Adam, what are the letters saying about issue X, Y, or Z? He always wanted to know, first and foremost, what was the view of the district and the view of his constituents. And so I would encourage our members to get involved, and don't be afraid to send a letter. We have template letters that we can send, and I can help you find the right contact information if you're not sure. And just getting involved is the first step to really making a difference.
Yeah, and for the viewers, we will make sure that we, in the video description on the YouTube channel, we will put links for tips on what to do, how to contact your representation, by phone, email, other methods involved. And back to what Lou had said and what Sam said, yes, we are talking about, looking at money that needs to be invested. This is very important money because it not only benefits our infrastructure by extending the life cycles of it, it protects our economy, but it also benefits our economy through the contractors that are doing the work, their employees that are doing the work, and then the focus on quality. We want to make sure that when the end product of this, that it still has in it the requirement for qualified contractors, and that it does have a focus on quality. Because when it comes to the bottom line is that the better the quality, the longer that you can extend that asset and get a better return on your investment. In closing out this interview, and I appreciate everyone, all of your input on this topic, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would want to leave with the viewers?
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what Adam said is very important. We can all participate by definitely voting. Vote for the candidates that are talking about this. That's extremely important. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, you got to vote. You got to at the very least, vote and be knowledgeable. Look it up. We have to do that, but that's our job too. That's AMP's job to educate the contractors as far as we're concerned. And then the other thing too is work through many of our associations. We have, I know I have bridge associations in New York, New Jersey. I know that Sam has his associations. There's the tank associations. We have our conferences, but we're not only there to have fun and have a few drinks and network. We also be talking about this, how we can help. And helping means supporting a candidate every once in a while. Those are important. But I can't emphasize enough the voting and understand what we have to do, and then understanding how we're going to support these programs. That's very important. But quality control is first and foremost, because that's the best value. I never go by the low price. What's the best value?
Yeah, you always want to look at the lowest qualified bid. That's how you want to do business out there. Any other last thoughts on the topic?
I just want to build on what Lou said there. I've been on the NACE side for 8 years, but now with AMP, I'm excited because there's a whole new membership and I get to learn about new issues and meet new members. And I would just encourage everybody to reach out to me if you have something that you'd like to learn more about, or just ways to get involved. The only way we can kind of make these changes that we're seeing in the world is to hear from our membership on what truly needs to be changed. And so, bridges is obvious and it's in the forefront right now, but what are those other issues that we need to be talking about and looking at? So I would encourage anybody, and I think my contact information will be in this video somewhere, to reach out to me. Help me be a resource to you all, because I want to do the best job that I can for the membership. And step one is just having this conversation. So thanks for organizing this, Jim, and good to meet Lou and see Sam today.
Yeah, definitely. And one other thing too, I think this shows the benefit of the merger of NACE International and SSPC, the Society for Protective Coatings, because this is action that independently probably might not have been so quick and so thorough. And Adam, I give you and also other leaders at AMP, Sam and Lou, a lot of credit, because working together we will benefit and we will be able to attack corrosion issues, help try to fix our infrastructure. We're never going to be 100%, but if we could get close to 100%, it's worth the battle. It's worth the investment. Sam, thank you very much. Lou, thank you very much. And Adam, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts and conversation today.
Happy to be here.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jim.
Jim.
All right. Have a great day.